Hello, this is Julianne Good, and this is Psych One-on-One. Welcome. We are here to make psychology more understandable, and we are here to give you tips on making your life easier. Tonight, my special guests are my new supervisor, Carmen Thomas, marriage and family therapist, and my colleague, Dr. Jean Marie Bradshaw, psychologist, and they are joining us from the Cerritos office. Tonight, we are going to be speaking about spiritual wellness and energy psychologies. Welcome, ladies. How are you doing?
Fine.
Good, thank you, Julie. This is Dr. Jean Marie Bradshaw. I'm a psychotherapist, not quite a psychologist yet.
On your way.
Maybe. I might just be happy being an MFT.
Very nice. And hi, Carmen. How are you?
I'm fine. Do you have any questions for me, or you want me to just talk a little bit about the practice of spiritual wellness?
Yeah, actually, we're going to just start off with, speaking about spiritual wellness. Can you let us know what that is in particular?
Yes, spiritual wellness is actually, and wellness in general, is like a lifelong process, like a learning, like a everyday, to manage everyday challenges. And really, when we think about wellness, is we refer to the connection between your body, mind, and spirit. And it's something very personal, because it matters how the person beliefs are and what are our life purpose. So it has to be touched a lot with the spiritual path of everybody. So actually, too, is like the person to strive for a state of, the harmony with self, with the other, with the environment. So they have to understand, too, that when I talk about the connection between body and spirit and mind, the person has to have like a certain path they have to follow. So the therapist is the guide or the coach that help the client understand what is the main purpose or guide them to their goal. So the main things, for instance, they have to maintain a balanced body, like a healthy eating, healthy exercise. And regarding the mind, it's about thoughts. Usually they're linking with the thoughts, and then you have the emotions. So talking about the thoughts is they help the client to identify and transform a negative thought that really make their life miserable, and it tends to give them anxiety, depression. And then the part of the soul is the part of the spiritual, is the third part of the balance. And this one have great effect in happiness and how the people tend to view the world around them. So it's important to have a balance in these three aspects of their life in order to have a perfect harmony. So usually one of the parts to reach this part of harmony is some person, they want to practice religious beliefs, go to church, and other people, they prefer to practice meditation. In meditation, usually, from the Sanskrit word, it means self-observation. It's more like a go inside yourself, and then look at the world, outside world, without the stimulus without the stimulus when we have of the senses. So usually we do with we close our eyes, and then we have a space is quiet. So that way we usually can go inside ourselves and observe, and usually process feelings, thoughts, beliefs that we have, that sometimes they're obstacle for us to reach the wellness. That's in a few words I can talk about that. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a very complicated process for, being able to integrate mind, body, and spirit, because I think as an American civilization, we are, more geared to be going within the thinking realm, and then maybe feelings coming second. Spirituality, depending on what culture you're from originally and how important religion was within your upbringing, I think a lot of people kind of do those divisions. So what what do you do to integrate all three of those, Carmen? And by the way, we're going to have you speak up a little bit louder too, please.
Okay, no
Thank
problem.
you. Excellent.
Yeah, the thing is, like, first of all, when you see somebody, when you see a client, you have to get a better understanding where the person comes from, where the religious beliefs, or where the belief, actually the belief the person has, okay, what kind of custom they have about the culture. When you have a good idea how the person functions, then you can adapt the therapy, the body and spirit therapy, in order to fit everybody, because not everybody is going to be have the same model of therapy. So that way it's adjustable. So the person, for instance, you see the American. So for instance, we can tell everybody wants to live a happy and fulfilled life, right?
Right.
So we start from there. Okay, so we can start from there. What things that make you happy? When it's not the happiness, the euphoria. It's like when you are content, when you feel good about something. So I start going from there, and it's usually you find that when the person is made content and happiness, that kind of happiness is something really from inside. It's not something that from outside, like buying a new car, getting a new house, because that happiness might stay for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Right, it's temporary.
Right, very temporary.
Yes.
So something like a spiritual and some emotional connection with somebody, especially if the person is married, have kids, or connection with God, if the person is religious. So that way, the person will feel a longer state of well-being. And then we, as a therapist, we help this client through the process, because we explained that it's a long process. It's not something they will reach in a matter of days or weeks. It's a long process.
It's a lifelong process in some
time. Very long process.
Yes, lifelong in some cases. In most cases, I would say, because, I think every day we need to take into consideration how am I serving, this mind, body, spirit connection the best I can for the time being, and tap into that. So
yes, I'm sorry, Julie. For instance, I want to give you an example, like, you can serve that one. For instance, expressing your feelings in an appropriate way. It may you feel better, having compassion, live a balanced life that will balance your body. Because, when your mind have better thoughts, positive thoughts, that's when we can connect that too with cognitive therapy. I use part of the cognitive therapy to for the person to transfer negative thoughts to more positive thoughts. When you have better thoughts, you feel better.
Yes.
Because usually when you're depressed and when you are have anxiety, your immune system slows down, and then you don't have better defense for any disease. You get more colds, you get headaches, you get back pains. Sometimes have problems with memory. So that part, you balance everything, and you're feeling better. The person can see certain results, making a small change. They will make them feel very good. They will help them to reach the wellness they needed.
So when a client comes in and you see that there's an imbalance between the three states, what is one of the things that you do at first to let them know, you might be out of balance here, and we can start this process slowly but surely? What would you recommend at first?
The first thing you do, actually, you're not like a judge there, then telling them this is wrong with you. Actually, you talk to the client and let them find them for themselves. What is wrong and what kind of changes they would like to be. You ask them, how you would like your life to be. I mean, you would like to be happier than now. You would like to have a better connection, emotional connection with your family. Mm-hmm. So they tell you what they need after a conversation, and then we start working with them in a sense that finding out if they are willing to change, because it's a personal choice.
It is.
Because it's nothing that the therapist will do. It's the client work.
Yes, it definitely all boils down to personal choice. I agree. I'm going to come back to you in a little bit, Carmen.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And Jean, hi, how are you?
Oh, good. Thank you, Julie, for letting me on tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you for being on. And Jean and I tried to connect a few weeks earlier, and it was during one of those times, I think that it was the flu season was hitting, correct?
Yes, and it happened upon me at the worst possible time. I really wanted to talk to you and talk to your audience and enjoy the opportunity you were giving me. And, of course, it hit that day. But I'm now fully recovered and energized and anxious to go.
That's wonderful. Yes, we're very happy about that. So, and talking about energy, you are going to be speaking about energy psychologies, and what in particular are those?
Well, there's different types. Body, mind, health. There's hypnotherapy. There's guided imagery, meditation, storytelling, and of course, EFT, and also ancient practices such as Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, and then along with that, faith and spirituality, a lot of, mind-body connection.
So what is one of your favorite modalities to work with within energy psychologies?
I have probably two. I like guided imagery, and I liked faith and spirituality. I have my doctorate in clinical psychology with an emphasis on spirituality.
And what type of spirituality do you explore with your clients?
Well, spirituality is the spiritual connection is very personal to the person. So whatever the client's belief is what I go with. I, have no judgment about anyone's faith or religion. And also, it's important to note that religion, a person can be a religious person and not be spiritual. A person can be spiritual and not be religious. People frequently go to organized religions and things to find their spirituality and may not find it there. Other people may go to nature. I use faith and spirituality a lot with forgiveness.
Yeah, that's very important, especially now, forgiveness is an interesting one.
Right. So, anyway, there's different types of forgiveness. And I think that where faith or spirituality plays the important part is forgiveness can be looked at as a spiritual phenomenon. So we all recognize that we're mere human beings and we're prone to make mistakes, and we can go to acceptance. And on the other end of the spectrum is forgiveness. The other definition of forgiveness is that, if you look in Webster Dictionary, forgiveness is sort of canceling or forgiving a debt. And when we speak about that in session, when I do with the clients, sometimes we can sort of forge toward an acceptance. Also understanding that if you can't forgive, say within a short period of time, it becomes your problem and not so much the other person's problem that might have created the harm to you. And that way it manifests to you is that it sort of feels like an albatross around your neck, showing up in the form of rage and resentment and misery. And I sort of got that information in this book, Anger to Forgiveness, as I was exploring that part towards spirituality. So it's important to remember to forgive people, not for them, the ones that might have hurt you, but for yourself. And in doing that, you go toward a sort of spiritual mindset. Because a person you might be forgiving may not be able to forgive you, may be unwilling to, might be dead, and you go to forgiveness so that you don't have to wear that albatross anymore.
Right. And
I'm sorry, I wanted to make one point.
Okay.
And in forgiveness, it's a spectrum, going from not forgiving at all to total, forgiveness. And it's important to note that some things can't be forgiven, but you can work on accepting that they happened for whatever horrible reason. And in doing that, you can sort of rid yourself of the hurt and the misery and the betrayal.
Right. And that's a really good point, Jean, is moving from putting it into that acceptance bowl almost and saying, okay, well, maybe this person did this and that to me because they were in this state of mind or they were stressed about this, and taking it to a different level.
Right, exactly. And, obviously that takes sometimes quite a bit of work. It brings to mind a situation where I had a father and his daughter deeply betrayed his trust. And he had to go to the well of faith to forgive her, and it was very difficult. And whereas the child, who is now an adult, wanted to make amends, the father was just so hurt, and sort of rightfully so, by this injustice. But he did and was able to accept it and then work on forgiveness, because he was able to accept that none of us are perfect.
Yeah, and maybe in that point, too, is there's some people that feel compelled that they have to forgive, like especially within some of the religious contexts. There is that you must forgive in order to move on to the next level of being a spiritual person, or, like you said, not having the albatross around their neck. So, but I think for a lot of people, just that concept is really difficult, that they have to do that. They're supposed to do it.
Well, you hear that sometimes from people that might be misguided toward another person, and I think forgiveness has to be sort of personal. So you might be familiar with that book, The Courage to Change, which is around sexual abuse. So for someone who knows someone who might have been hurt that way, to suggest to that person that was hurt, oh, just forgive them, can be sort of almost personally insulting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of a personal matter, and we might not ever come to terms with full forgiveness based on the acts of hurt or betrayal that were inflicted on us as a child or as an adult. But we can come to terms with acceptance, and that will help us.
Yes, that sounds like very good advice, very good advice. Jean and Carmen, we are going to take a little bit of a musical break here. When we come back, I would like to talk about how both of your work, how it intersects all the modalities that you use with clients to try to get them back to their own centers and with compassion. Okay?
Sure. Okay. That'd be great.
Great. Thank you. welcome back to Psych One-on-One. I'm Julianne Good, and my special guests this evening are Carmen Thomas and Jean Marie Bradshaw. Both are therapists from the Cerritos office that I'm now practicing in also. So welcome back, ladies. Thank you so much for being on Psych One-on-One.
Thank you.
So we are going to talk about how all of your modalities within energy psychologies and spiritual wellness all kind of fit together. Who would like to start first?
Well, I'll start.
Okay.
So I like to use cognitive behavioral therapy, which is sort of working on your dysfunctional, and this is not an energy psychology, which is working on your dysfunctional thoughts and distorted beliefs. So you might have the idea that you might be afraid of the future. So worry is not a natural thing for us to learn. We learn it from probably one of our parents, and I can thank my mom for teaching me how to worry. Yeah. But, thanks, Mom. Anyway, and that happens in cognitive behavioral therapy. You'll find a client that might come to you with anxiety, and they are worried a lot. And so what usually happens is they're not thinking in the present. They're thinking catastrophically or in the future, or a disaster expectating, in the future. And so with using an energy psychology such as mindfulness meditation, you sort of stay in the present by, listening to, paying attention to your breathing as a way of anchoring yourself and helping you with your concentration, where you have to be in the present. And then paying attention to the sounds that you're experiencing with your breathing, your sensations and your feelings, observing how they feel and their quality, and then, of course, returning back to your breathing, and images that you might be, experiencing internally when you're meditating, and thoughts. And then, tying that to cognitive behavioral therapy, or I call CBT, kind of works because it teaches the client, or anybody for that matter, how to stay in the now. So they go hand in hand, and it's sort of interesting because our thoughts are not, are part of our brain, but you don't really associate it frequently with, energy psychologies or any energy therapies.
Mm-hmm. And when you were explaining that, Jean, I was going into a meditative state, so thank you. I needed that.
Well, just let me know. I have a guided imagery exercise if we have time.
That would be wonderful. I'm sure that the listeners would appreciate that. It's anything that we can use nowadays to help us calm down and stay centered and get back to being grounded is most helpful. So, yes, I would like to do that towards the end of the program. That would be great.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And Carmen, what kind of meditations do you use with your clients?
I usually do. I start first with deep breathing. I use a lot of the yoga modalities because I practice yoga. So we usually start with deep breathing and relaxation. And then I start reading a small script, because I'm study hypnotherapy. So I do a live hypnosis. So that usually I calm down the brain, and then I start getting the clients to close their eyes. So I move them from the active brain that they have, and the brain energy is beta waves. We change the brain wave to the alpha, that will be when they close the eyes and slow down and relax. So that part, I guide the client to that really long relaxation using music. And then after that, when the client is like in a deep half asleep, I start doing certain kind of induction, hypnotic inductions. It all depends, I told you it depends how the client is, because I have an interview before, and we talk about what the goals and what are the things the client, the behavior the client wants to change. And I tell you, this is very important. I use a lot. I work with a victim of crime and person they're living high stress. The nervous system is really, they're jumpy. They're really afraid. A lot of anxiety. So when they come to me, we start with a deep relaxation, a deep sense of they're feeling safe there, because the safety for them is very important.
Yes.
So we start with the breathing, with the relaxation, and you can see the change in those, and then with the affirmations. So the affirmation is, I'm a strong person. I can do, I will ask for help when I need it, because a lot of these clients, they don't know how to ask for help. They feel powerless. They feel isolated. So I instill those principles in them. And then after that, I bring them back. And you know these changes because after that, I take them from the meditative state. We talk about that stuff, and I gave them a small exercise to do it at home, especially for sleeping, because this person have a lot of problems sleeping. So we do a lot of exercise, relaxation, systematic relaxation, so they can sleep. That's what I do. I usually, they use images, like they go into a better place when they want to relax and when they want to sleep. So that's the stuff I do, but I tell you, each client is different, because from the interview, I know what kind of technique I can use with them.
Yes, and you're right about traumatized people. I think one of the things that they go into is a fight or flight situation. They have a tendency to almost, if they're in that flight zone, they want to just curl up into a corner and go someplace else, and then they don't want to be breathing properly. I mean, they shut down on a neurological level. And just getting them to sit with you in session and start opening up that breathing is so incredibly powerful. I've used that with probably just about every one of my clients, is doing the deep breathing techniques and have them breathe all the way down into their bellies instead of stopping it just at their lungs. Because as adults, we get stuck into that pattern of just breathing from the lungs, and we think that's proper breathing, and it's not. We need to be breathing almost like babies breathe. That is the way that we are naturally geared to be breathing, and that is what relaxes us and calms us down and centers us, and that works anywhere you are. That is so powerful. So I agree with both of you ladies that's one of the most important techniques that all of us can use on a daily basis.
Yes, it's important because everybody realizes that when you are in a lot of stress, you can sometimes you stop kind of breathing, or you breathe very fast. So I use the yoga and relaxation, the yoga breathing, that the counting, like an inhale counting to 3 or 4, an exhale counting to 3 or 4, and usually I told them that observe the baby, how the baby breathes. It's like an abdominal, stomach breathing. Don't breathe with your chest.
Right.
Because at breathing with your chest, you kind of feel like a suffocating. So you breathe, do a deep breathing using your stomach when you inhale, and an exhale counting to 3, counting back to 3. When you exhale, really help you. And I usually tell them to do 5 or 6 of that when they're in deep stress, and then they will see the results. And they have really positive results with that.
Yeah, and it's beautifully easy. That's the great thing about it, and it's free.
We forget to do it. Yeah, we forget to do it. Yeah.
Right. And then, Carmen, I'm going to have you speak up a little bit again, okay?
Okay.
Great, thank you. Now, Jean, I'm going to come back to you and talking about the energy psychologies. Now, you were talking about EP before, and could you explain a little bit about that?
Oh, EP, I'm sorry, is just a abbreviation for energy psychologies. But I forgot to mention one that I think might be important. Can I go ahead and talk about that one?
Please do.
Well, I believe intuition is also a part of energy psychology because frequently intuition can be experienced as a felt sense that begins in the body and sort of evolves into a knowing. And frequently with intuition, it's a body-mind experience where we experience it in all 5 of our senses, hearing, taste, feeling, smell, sight. And in doing that, we become aware of the sixth sense or intuition. So, to me, there's different sorts of intuitions in this. There's a sensing that something is wrong or incomplete that you can experience in your body. So you might experience it as a sort of gut intuition, and studies have shown that they call it the belly brain, is connected closely to the spine, which communicates to your physical brain. And so we might have a gut feeling, and somehow we're picking up on something that might be subconscious, that might be nonverbal, or something more than that. And it sort of can be considered like a listening. We need to listen to all our senses to sort of access that part of ourselves, which is a higher part of ourselves, a more patient, waiting part, almost like a spiritual part. And with that, there can come hunches, sudden knowing. It can be words can suddenly come in, or it could be a visual sort of thing, or maybe an out of nowhere solution. And sometimes this occurs in session. A client might have a sudden knowing, might have a sudden insight. Or myself as a therapist, I might have a sudden compulsion or impulse to just say something in therapy, and out comes a question that's completely removed, such as, why didn't you ever tell me about your father? Or how come your mother never told you she loved you? And it's interesting because usually so far I've been really lucky. They've been 100% right on when I've experienced these ways of body, mind, flashes of intuition. I once shared that with a professor when I was in grad school, that I felt like I could be intuitive. And she said, well, when you don't know what to do in session, go to your intuition. And I've sort of been relying on her guidance with that ever since I started practicing psychotherapy. Anyway, I wanted to share that about intuition.
Thank you. And I agree with you. That's so important. I've had that happen in session too, where my thinking brain was almost overthinking the situation, and it was trying too hard to come up with a solution for the client when I just needed to take a deep breath, kick back, listen to my intuition, and ask the right question. Asking the right question sometimes can be so life-changing for a client. Just getting them to think along different lines, just with the one special question that when you look at their facial expressions, when you look at their nonverbal language, that a light bulb has gone on and they're thinking deeper and they've made that shift.
And that's so wonderful to experience. And you wonder where it comes from. So I sort of visualize intuition as sort of a cloud out there that we might one day be able to all access, but that we therapists, I think, because we're so in tune to the clients and other people are naturally intuitive, that we frequently get close to that cloud, and somehow the clients and our rapport and the listening so intently helps create a bridge where we can access it. And, I think that it sounds like you access it pretty frequently, which is great.
Yes.
Asking the right question is so important. And it's sometimes like you said, life-changing and can create such insight. A good therapist knows, ask the right question, and you're right about that.
Yeah, and don't overthink it. That's the hard part.
Kind of hard not to do, but...
I know. Too much schooling, you overthink.
Right.
And Carmen, how do you use intuition in your practice?
Oh, this is a good question because I was listening about your comments there, and that's very important because the thing is you have to sometimes, you cannot know the solution of the client problem. It's like, oh my God, the client have it right there, but you have to guide the client in a sense that he finds himself, and you can do that, of course, using intuition in during the practice. You can guide it, the Socratic questioning. So you guide with questioning the client, and you can sense, you can see when the client had the aha moment, like I say, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do it. This is what's the behavior supposed to change. That's what the choices I have to make. And it is very important in the way to reaffirm the client that sometimes in the past they make choices they know were good for them, but they were the best choices they made at that time. And looking, past in the past, they can see how can I make that choices. So reaffirm them that they still is a good person. They can make changes, and they can use that experience in a sense to move forward. So it was not really a failure that they have. It's more like experience. Any kind of experience, bad or good, is going to be help them to reach the spiritual, the body, mind, spirit wellness.
Yes, and help them to better their lives. And
Yes.
and to, you're right, reaffirm their own intuition process, to listen to those gut feelings and go with them, because your body knows sometimes before your brain does exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
So that's why, I ask them, to go inside. Like I sometimes I don't even call meditation because it's sometimes the word even scares some people. So we say, go inside, close your eyes, okay, and listen what it's telling you, what your body is telling you, what is your mind, how your emotions are. So that way, for instance, if I feel guilty about something, or I feel stressed about something, or that person really tried to do something to me, so process those emotions and those feelings, and to see that sometimes they're overreacting. And they tell you, oh, maybe I overreact about this. Maybe I'm thinking too much about this. It's not really important. So it's very important for them to find out what is really important in their life and what is less important in their life. That's what I usually tell my client. I go to the stream. For instance, is they are dying and in the deathbed, and what is the thing they will regret the most? Will regret the most, like I suppose to clean my house 20 times better, or make more trips to the supermarket, or buy more dresses or something like that, or will be like spend more time connecting with family, with friends. So they usually, at that time, when you put the clients in that position, they can see and open their eyes, and they be aware of what is really important for them. And they will find something that will be lasting.
Right.
That will give them the happiness that will go forward day after day, and they can increase that. They can see that.
Right. Human connection versus materialism. Yes.
Yes.
Very important. We need to be reminded of that on a daily basis, and that's really difficult in this society. The consumerism that we experience in this country is phenomenal. And I think a lot of people do end up feeling like they need to accumulate things, and that's going to make them happy because we've been brainwashed into that by the media. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I find it fascinating with some of the women that I worked with over in the domestic violence shelter. Many of them, that was their first exposure to having therapy. And that was, for many of them, the first time they were able to talk about themselves and their lives without being interrupted, without,
Yes, it's important. Or judge.
Yes, or
judged.
judged.
Or blame, right? Or blame.
Exactly.
Right. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit, Julie, is like how the therapists maintain, balance, the wellness, because it's important for us as a therapist, to maintain that balance in order to guide and to help others.
Yes.
Because all this help, the guidance, sometimes it causes you to a decrease in energy. And then sometimes if you're not careful and you don't maintain the balance, like, doing your exercise, your meditation, like cleaning yourself. That's what I call myself, cleaning yourself every night.
Yes.
In a sense, like I get all the other energy. So it start fresh next day in order to be able to be more open, use more your intuition. You were talking about saying the right words, asking the right question. So the therapist has to be prepared too. We have to work with ourselves too, not only with the clients. We have to work with ourselves in order to provide a good service to them.
Mm-hmm. So what's one of the things that you do for self-care?
For self-care, it's important. I practice yoga and in about weekly basis, a few times a week. And then really, in the yoga, you do like the breathing exercise and the wonderful. So I can tell my clients I do that. So I do some meditation or going inside. And then you can see, I tell them to have a healthy, I usually call healthy self-esteem. I don't call good or bad, healthy in a sense that you recognize your own flaws and you see that you can make changes if you want to work on them. So that way they know we are human too. We're not the perfect person and the one who's going to give advice to them. It's something I can share some experience. And then I say, okay, it's your choice. This has happened, this might be, and then it's your choice. Usually you have to give clients choices.
Yeah.
And then, have good connections. And for me, like a therapist with my private life, have good emotional connections, because I cannot tell my clients to have good emotional connection with family if I'm lacking of that. So I will feel like I betrayed them. I have to do it. It's like a model. It's like a parent or something like that. It's like a modeling for them.
Yes.
I'm struggle too, but I put in one foot over the other one every day. I walk the walk. That's important for them to know that I'm doing that too.
Right. So you practice what you preach. That's what it boils down to. Yes.
It's a struggle, but you do.
Right. And then, Jean, what do you do for self-care as a therapist?
Well, I'm fortunate. I have a nice home here in Long Beach, and I have another home in the desert, in Palm Desert, and I usually go there 3 times a month, and that's where I sort of relax, and that's a joke. I have friends there, and it's beautiful out there, and going out there is sort of feeling one with nature, and I sort of regroup with everything, and feel more serene. It's sort of a place to go that's a haven for me, where I can be more myself and sort of decompress after a week of people, trying to help people.
Yeah, you definitely need that. You need to regroup and not get burnt out. That's the whole key to staying healthy in this profession, is you need to unplug from time to time. You need to regroup and get real with yourself. That's the whole thing, because, there's a thing called being your authentic self with your clients. And I have worked with therapists before that I could tell that they were like on the edge and not practicing self-care, and they needed to go and unplug. And I think I had even said something within session like, well, how are you taking care of yourself? It's really important
you're
for
pretty
me.
insightful that way.
Yeah.
I've heard that, or I've read that you just, as a therapist, you just need to be 51% better than your client, but I would hope that you're better than that. Sometimes it is in our profession that therapists may want to work out their own stuff, with their clients, and of course that's not healthy for anybody.
No.
So we have to be careful and be mindful if we're going through anything that's distracting us from therapy with our clients, and if we are and it continues, then we need to pay attention to that and take care of that.
Right. Be responsible to self first and then your clients, because it goes hand in hand. Otherwise, there's a countertransference that may happen in therapy, and it's not healthy for anybody.
Well, that's for sure.
So let's get back to talking about some mindfulness techniques. I mean, that seems to be the big buzzword in therapy now, is mindfulness. It's interesting that it's being incorporated more within a lot of modalities. It's kind of surfacing up and making its way through, not only as a technique by itself, but as you mentioned before, Jean, within CBT. And as you mentioned before, Carmen, with doing yoga and doing trauma therapy work. So can you both talk about mindfulness a little bit and techniques that you use to get a person to understand themselves a little bit better?
Well, I think if we look at someone like Dr. Kabat-Zinn, he talks about mindfulness meditation is not about really shutting off your mind. Instead, it's about awareness, finding out about who you are, and it's sort of the opposite of our, American go-go society. It's more about non-doing and more about being. So we can be really busy doing and not feeling. We can be really busy distracting and not being. So it's sort of a willingness to know and be aware of what you don't know and going on beyond, focusing on thinking. It's about maybe offering ourselves up to something bigger, up to our creativity, up to our awareness, and just focusing on that and allowing our higher power, our universe, to be our guide, our instructor, our teacher.
Yeah, and maybe not knowing all the time is all right.
Yes.
Not having that particular answer you're looking for at the moment to just suddenly appear, like you Google it up and there it is.
Yeah, I think that we sort of get spoiled that way in society, with instant information gratification. And we might have forgotten sometimes how it feels to just sit and be with yourself and be patient and be waiting and feeling.
That's a great way of stating it. And Carmen, how do you incorporate mindfulness?
You incorporate mindfulness in a way, that says, to accept yourself. Don't judge yourself as much, that way you can promote changes. Usually I do an exercise that I really work with a person. It's like they think they're sitting in a movie theater and they see in a big screen, they see themselves acting. So they're like very objective when they're looking at the person. So sometimes they are able to see what kind of behavior they have, what kind of choices they make, and from the outside perspective. So that way, it's not something that you can blame yourself, you feel guilty about it. They take all those feelings when you do that exercise and really help the person to find out how they can make the changes without judging themselves. Because when you start judging and when you start feeling guilty, and then we say, okay, you know what, I will keep doing this. I'm already guilty, so I will keep doing this kind of behavior. So that way, if you take the person out and then do the exercise with them, they will find a better way to make changes in their life. Plus, they give them the trust. They start trusting themselves more about to make better choices and not judge themselves about the other choices they make in the past. So accept yourself, like I told you before, accept yourself, accept your flaws, recognize that you can make changes if you want to. It's very important the client has to recognize if they want to do it. because sometimes for themselves, because sometimes they want to make changes for other people. So that's important too. Sometimes the kids want to get better grades because the mom expect them to do it, but he's really not interested in the class. So it's an example, but that's the kind of changes they're not going to be long-lasting because the client doesn't want to do them for themselves.
Right, and just getting them to understand this is an ongoing process. You need to be patient with yourself. Change takes time. It takes self-compassion.
And change takes time, and change is painful. And you have a lot of, I call like a blackmail from your mind and from your body telling you, for instance, do it tomorrow, do it next day. You feel, because you're comfortable, even if the situation is not good for you, even if you're suffering, it's comfortable because you know the situation. So when you're going to do something new, it's a change. You really don't know that much about the situation, and you're scared. That's where the therapists help, like a coaching and guiding this client through the process of changing. And reaffirmation is very important. Reaffirmation and trust with your therapy in order to be able to make those changes. You are guiding them a little bit, and you let them walk by themselves.
Yes, you're a quasi-parent at times as a therapist. Yes, that's a great way of putting it. And Jean, you had mentioned previously about a guided imagery. How long does that take approximately?
Oh, probably no more than 5 minutes at the most. I don't think I can blab on much longer than that.
Okay. Because we've got about 2.5 minutes left here. Is there any way you can do an abbreviated version?
Sure.
Okay. And I will give you I'll give you a verbal when we're getting to about the 2 minute or the 30-second level, so we can all give our contact numbers at the end, or if you would like to give those now, it's up to you.
Why don't I give mine now, because I might tell everybody the purpose of this exercise.
Okay.
So my name is Dr. Jean Marie Bradshaw, and my contact number is 562-400-2135.
And Carmen?
Yes.
Would you like to give your contact information also as we're wrapping up?
Yes. They can email me at therapist@bodyandspiritwellness.com, or they can visit me on my website, www.bodyandspiritwellness.com. So you can send me an email, or you can call me at 714-606-8185.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Jean, I'm going to have you take us out here. You have about 1 minute and 20 seconds. Can you do it?
Yes, I'll try.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't we all relax here and just sort of close our eyes and imagine that we're walking onto the ocean, onto the beach, and we feel the sand in between our feet. We feel the sun on our back. We hear the seagulls and smell the ocean, and a whiff of coconut oil lotion as it goes through the air. And we look out over the calm, tranquil sea, and we see that it's beckoning us to go into the water. So we walk toward the ocean, and we go in, and it feels so nice, so beautiful, so refreshing. We decide to go in farther and farther. And presently we realize we're underwater, but we're breathing just as easily as we do on land. And we're seeing so many fascinating things under the ocean. We're seeing a school of fish to our right, and sea culps swaying gently on our left to the rhythm of the ocean. And presently we see something far out in front of us that is looking at us curiously, and we're also curious about it. And we see that it beckons us closer to it. And we see that it's a sea creature. And it's coming closer to us, and it has something very important to tell us about ourselves.
Okay. Jean?
After it tells us, we
Jean?
go back and say goodbye to it, and we presently walk out of the ocean, feeling refreshed and invigorated, and go to our towel to wipe ourselves off.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jean. I had to cut that off. I was starting to feel really relaxed, and so hopefully the listeners were also. And Jean, thank you so much for being my guest. Carmen, thank you so much for being my guest also. You two were wonderful, and I'm really honored to be working with you.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And I will see you soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And thank you so much for tuning into Psych One-on-One. This has been Julianne Good. Tune into us on iTunes at Psych One-on-One. And I have also multiple shows archived at skidrowstudios.com. Thank you so much, Jenny Guzman, my board operator. You rock. Thank you so much, Jeremy Hansen, my executive producer. You are wonderful, and thank you. Take care. This has been Julianne Good for Psych One-on-One. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other now. Bye now.